Okay, good morning. Well, good morning for me. So I'm being joined today by Dr. Andrew Chappell. Got your name right this time. From across the pond in Scotland. I'm not going to even try to pronounce Edinburgh. So
That
you're
was
going
not
to have
bad.
to. You don't have to lie. You don't have to lie, Andrew. We're good. But how are you? Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here, and I believe we're going to talk about something today out with the normal sort of area. So we're not doing neuroscience today, but I can try and splice in a few little bits and pieces here. But
Yes.
thanks for having me. It's been a busy morning for me. Oh, afternoon now, I should say. We're in
It's
slightly
yeah,
different time
after
scale here.
yeah, just little pond time difference, right? So you have your, just for the people listening, you do have a PhD in
Right.
nutrition. You're a world champion bodybuilder
That's
for
right. I've
nat.
got some medals behind me. You can see.
Yeah. So what kind of drove you into your educational background? And not only that, but you're also a lecturer at a
Queen
college,
Margaret
correct?
University.
Okay. And what are you lecturing on there? So what's your day job?
Okay, gosh, there's so many things we can talk about here. So I'll introduce myself first and foremost. So I'm
Thank
Dr.
you.
Andrew Chappell, and I am a lecturer, as you say, in human nutrition. So I have a PhD in human nutrition. I have a master's degree in human nutrition as well. And my first degree, my undergraduate, was in sport and exercise science. Okay, so I live and breathe this stuff. I love diet, nutrition, health, public health, physical activity, all that sort of stuff. And I'm billing myself as a performance nutritionist because I love
Mm.
working with people who want to maximize their performance, be it in the case of they want to jump as high as they can or lift as much weight as possible or run the furthest distance possible. And I specialize primarily though in sort of bodybuilding type populations. So I'm a
Mhm.
natural bodybuilder. Call me the natty coach. That's my business. And I help guys get absolutely ripped and in shape. Yeah. But I've worked with strongmen. That was great fun. I've worked with powerlifters. I've worked with the Scottish international rugby team. So it's the Six Nations at the moment. So I've worked with those guys as well. I've worked with runners, cyclists, and all sort of different bits and pieces in between. So that's a little bit about me. Now, what drove me to go on and do this stuff? My gosh, what drives anyone, right? It's probably a very common story. Um, so it is. But when I was young and I was growing up, because I'm a child of the 90s, I was born in the 80s. I was really, really into WWF wrestling. Hulk Hogan,
Yeah.
the Ultimate Warrior, it became Triple H and The Rock and Stone Cold. All these guys in their colorful outfits and stuff like that. And I suppose for a lot of young men, a lot of boys from the working classes, that's your introduction to theatre, right? Because it's a great
Mhm.
big drama and you've got these larger in life characters. And that coincided as well with who the major celebrities and movie stars were at the time as well, which were Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Mhm.
Sylvester Stallone, and all this sort of stuff. So for me, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, that's what a man looks like, right?
Yeah.
Muscle, right? That's what, yeah. But it's not just that, they are larger in life characters. And when you watch them in their movies, they own the room, they've got presence, they've got space. And I made the link with muscle and all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of maybe some of it comes from that. But we've been that that's a bigger question maybe about masculinity and sort of general. But
Mhm.
when you're a young guy and you're coming from like dare say that the streets, but from a background where it's not that well off and everything like that, that seemed to me like an avenue to go on and have a life that was
Yeah.
maybe accessible to me in that way. And I started reading bodybuilding magazines. So I would buy like Flex magazine, I would buy Muscle and Strength and Muscular Development. And it was always the same, right? There'd be a guy on the beach, he'd have a
Mhm.
beautiful woman on his arm, or he'd be driving a great car. And it was like, right, this is what you need to do, right? so,
Yeah.
so I was like, right, go with him, lift some weights. That's going to get me a girlfriend. And maybe I can have a
Yeah.
career from there. And little did I know but it was not going to work out like that. But regardless, when I went into the gym those sort of first times, and when I'm doing my physical activity, when I'm doing my sport, I love it. I love the feeling of challenging myself, of pushing myself, and that's just something that is probably inherent to me. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to let you jump in because
Yeah.
now you've probably got specific questions
No,
about this sort
I
of stuff.
do. I do. So you work with people across all spectrums, not just, I
Okay,
know that your main focus is bodybuilders, but
that's
you
right. Yeah,
said the Scottish rugby team, runners, etc.
yeah,
When you're working with these people, are you working with them mainly from a nutritional aspect, or are you doing a holistic approach, mindset, nutrition, you know, workout plans, etc.?
yeah.
Like what is your approach whenever you work with these people? Because obviously we know that my podcast is about mindset.
Sure.
I know for certain that there is a big link between your diet,
Hmm.
like your gut health, in your brain.
Yep.
And
Okay.
so whenever you're working with people, are you linking those two, or are we focusing more on the actual diet and performance, or do you also incorporate mindset work?
Okay. So there's a few questions there. So
I
when you're
know there's a lot.
when you're working with a sports team, right? Usually
Mhm.
what's happening is you're working with a multidisciplinary team, right? So in rugby, there's 15 players, and then you've got the subs. That might be another 15 guys plus like the reserves as well. So there's a squad of like 30 guys on there, and then there's like the youth team as well, which might be there, the academy. So maybe it's 45 players, but the support staff might be 30 people as well. So you've got like
Mhm.
say 9 physiotherapists, you've got like a dentist because it's rugby, you've got a team doctor, you've got the Pilates and the yoga person, you've got the tackling coach, you've got the defensive coach,
Mm.
all these different people at the same time. And then you as a nutritionist, you're slotting in with them there as well. And you're only maybe there 2 or 3 days a week at the same time, but they might have
Mhm.
a psychologist, right? And then they've got
Right.
the team coach as well at the same time. And you know that like those guys, they talk about this idea of man management and putting the arm around it or giving the guy like a rollicking. So we use the classic analogy of the carrot and the stick. So you've got probably lots of different touch points with lots of different
Mhm.
people along the way, and everyone's kind of working towards that effort of trying to make the team the best they possibly can. So you're maybe not always just staying in your lane, with regards to the sort of the psychology stuff because you're all trying to pick people up and improve them.
Yeah.
But the time that you're spending with them, like from a nutritionist perspective, is you're maybe helping them with okay, we've got a team breakfast that goes on, and we've got like the team lunch, and we've got all the snacks that they're going to have, or they're traveling away, and you've got to make
Mhm.
like what is the things that they're going to go eat, and then if we got problem players like okay, this guy needs to lose weight, or this guy needs to gain weight, and the tackling coach has said right, go and see Andy, he's going to help you with this and everything like that. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how you're working in that respect, right? When I'm working with my clients on an individual basis, it's different because the dynamic between a team sport
Mhm.
and an individual sport is different because well you're by yourself, right?
Right.
And some people when you're going to work with them, like when I worked with the guys that did the strongman, for example. So I've worked with like UK Strongest Man and guys that done like Giants Live. So you know these guys on the TV and they do World's Strongest Man every year and they've lifted big rocks. Well, I'd be fortunate enough to work with some of these bits. So they might have like a physiotherapist and they might have a strength conditioning coach, you might do yourself, and then they've got me as a nutritionist. So I might be doing a lot more with those
Mhm.
guys than what I'm ever going to be doing with a
Yeah, the
team.
team.
And then when it comes to like my bodybuilding clients, very often they're coming to me as a one-stop shop. So I'm doing everything with them. And I think that's such a huge thing. Like I was talking to a person this morning, right? And you ask people why you want to do these goals. Like, what is it to you that makes you want to maybe do this bodybuilding contest or get ready for this cycling event or whatever? And they tell me things. Oh well, I want to do it, and it seems exciting and it's fun. But what I really want to get at is why do you really want to do it? Because we know
Mhm.
in sports psychology um, circles that you really need a strong, emotionally grounded goal to help source that someone's going to achieve that goal. And then we need to try and remove barriers which might be in people's way to help them get towards that goal. Yeah. Because if the goal is not emotionally grounded and it's a bit flaky, oh, I want to do it just because I want to do it, then like, why
Right.
not just go and climb a mountain? Why not just go do a cycling thing or do a marathon? What is it about this competition that actually matters to you? And you want to make sure that grounding is there so that when it comes to getting up at like 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning to do the cardio and cook your boiled chicken and do your posing,
Mhm.
even though you're absolutely shattered and you've had no sleep from the night before, you want to make sure they're going to do it, right? And if they don't
Right.
have that emotional grounding, they just don't. They don't do it. So for me, it's about making sure they've got the right people in the door from the start. And then when I work with them from that mindset sort of perspective, it's about establishing, right, what are the goals? What do we want to get to? Why do we want to get there? And then can we set the milestones towards it, right? And that's the sort of combination of that setting those smart goals and then at the same time making sure that we are massively intrinsically motivated because that's huge. And it's good to have that external motivation as well because we know, again, from sports psychology, people that have got massive intrinsic motivation and massive extrinsic motivation, that's your Tiger Woods, your Serena
Yep.
Williams, your Ronaldos and stuff like that. Whereas your more low-key sportsmen and women are the ones which are massively intrinsically motivated and task oriented, but they're not the superstars. Yeah. Because you
Mhm.
need a bit of ego, right? You need a bit of ego. So
Yeah.
again, I've talked a lot there. I'll let you digest that and then I can jump into
Yeah.
the gut health if
No,
you like. Yeah. What do you think?
no, it's I love that. And so I had actually several weeks ago someone on the podcast who's an ultra runner,
Yeah,
an ultra
sure.
marathon runner, and we talked about this too because she actually said you better define your why
Yes.
you're doing this, because that if you're doing it just to do it, it is so different than having that emotional connection as to
Yes.
why you're doing it.
Yes.
And the other thing that she mentioned that I thought was interesting, and I don't know what your thoughts on this is, but she said your body will always give up, or no, your mind gives up before your body ever will. And she's like, and
There's
that's
some truth
whenever
in
you
that
go to
for
your
sure,
why.
right?
Yeah. And she's like, that's whenever you start going to your why. Like whenever you are there and you're like, I can't do this, this is
Yeah.
painful. And you have to remember your why of why you're doing this. For her, it's waking up at 3 or 4 a.m. to go for those long runs and
Yeah.
those trainings.
Hmm.
And also having that, and she actually works with a coach as well because it's a lot of mental fortitude. When you're
Yeah.
doing these things, it is so much mental fortitude along with your diet, right? But it is so much more mental than it is physical.
Hmm.
And I think that what you said about we better get a good reason as to why you're doing this. And I can't even, I mean, I've never done bodybuilding competitions or anything like that, but I know people that have, and it I would assume it is more mental than the physical. Obviously the physical is important, but it is so mental because your diet has to be on point. Like you have very specific cycles where you're like shredding and bulking and eating like very specific caloric intakes, and what you're inputting in your body is like cold chicken for the 5 days, and
Yeah.
and so it's just it's a lot of it's mental, and that's
Yeah.
what I don't think people realize. They think like, oh, I'm just going to go do a bodybuilding competition, I'm just going to go lift weights, or I'm going to go run a marathon or whatever, but your mindset has to be there along with your nutrition. So
Yeah. a
I
hundred
think your
percent.
mindset for me is far more. I mean, nutrition's important, but whenever you're doing these extreme physical tasks, your mindset's gonna be the thing that gets you through it.
Yes. And I mean, like an ultra runner spends a lot of time
Mhm.
at their own head, just running and just going. And even though the bodybuilding is go to the gym for that hour and a half, then do your cardio and other things like that, it is something that you do day after day, week after week, month after month towards the goal. So a prep for me meant 9 months of sticking to a diet and doing all the training. And it's a marathon. It is quite literally it's a marathon, and people do not appreciate that at all. Wherever, so the mindset's got to be absolutely spot on for it. The other sort of side of thing I like about it, as well as I always kind of describe, and you could do this for a lot of sports, I suppose. It's a deeply spiritual thing. And if you think about like religions, a lot of them have got this process of fasting. So if you think about Judaism, there's lots of feasts and fasting holidays. We're just going for Ramadan at the moment with the Islamic faith. We've got Easter with Lent and things like that, and all of them have this fasting experience. So you're giving something up for the now, for that delayed gratification for the later. And obviously, in the religious context, it is to bring you closer to your spiritual maker. And bodybuilding, again, because it's such a focus on the nutritional side of things, of losing weight, and you are quite literally starving to death some of the time, right? Just with enough calories to make sure that you don't tip the balance and lose all the muscle mass. You really do. It becomes such a spiritual thing that you're doing as you pass on it, because you're giving up something now for your future self. Yeah, and that's a huge mindset thing. So for me, if I can, it's about working with your clients. Is why do you want to do the goal? What does it really, really matter to you? How can we remove the barriers which are in your way so that we can push yourself towards that goal and make it as easy as we possibly can? And it's all about discipline, because motivation, I mean, it only lasts for so long. It just has to be something you do time after time after time, even if you don't want to. You just have to do it and just embrace the suck, because that's what it is, and it's going to be difficult.
Embrace the suck. Yeah, embrace the suck. And that's the thing too, is motivation only lasts temporarily because of the dopamine, right? Like whenever you start something new, it's exciting, your dopamine is just blowing 90 miles an hour. And then whenever it's not a novelty anymore, your dopamine naturally decreases, and then you have to push through that dopamine dip. But kind of pivoting, okay, what are your thoughts on like these fad diets, like keto? And I know that you posted something on your Instagram about the polycystic ovarian syndrome diet. Like, what are your thoughts on this? If someone truly wanted to get healthy and lose weight, like, are these diets just BS, or like what are they to you?
Okay, I mean, it's a good question. So let's wrap things up with dopamine, because dopamine's interesting, what you just said there about that.
Okay.
What we know about a goal, right, is that, as you say, when you've got this novelty and you've got your new goal in place, you get a massive dopamine spike, right? Now, when you're dieting and getting ready for events, that massive dopamine spike, what that does is it creates like a dam, okay? And it blocks out some of those hunger signals that you might get in your brain that tell you to go.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you've got these orexigenic and anorexigenic hormones that tell your body to eat or not eat, right? They block it. Now, these orexigenic hormones are massively powerful. They are like a fuel gauge on your car that says, right, it's time to fill up now, because our fat stores are getting empty, our liver stores are getting empty, our muscle stores are getting empty, right? So they get triggered and it says, right, go and eat. So you're working against yourself all the time to not eat, right? And it's that goal which creates that barrier that really matters to you, that gets you the dopamine hit, that stops you just going away and eating your full fridge, right? And all that ice cream that's in there and everything else, right? Now, the kicker on it is, when the goal is uncertain, right? Am I going to win? Am I going to lose? Can I actually really climb that mountain or not? Or am I going to fail in it? The dopamine hit is bigger.
Are you serious?
Bigger hit. Yes, seriously. So if you go for, if it's uncertain, like, and it has to be smart, you know what I mean? Like a smart goal. It can't be like completely unrealistic. But that dopamine hit is even greater. But now, the context of this and why I bring this up is because people, they do bodybuilding shows and they do diets, right? But when they finish the bodybuilding show, they come off the diet. And then when they
Mhm.
come off the diet, they eat a lot of junk food, right? They binge eat very often.
Right.
And it's because that barrier is just become, the dam's gone. They no longer have that barrier of the dopamine holding back all these signals. And their body's like,
Wow.
we need the calories. We need to recover from this severe thing that you've actually done to yourself. Yeah. And I just thought I would add all this in because it's an interesting aside to that sort of story around the dopamine that I thought you'd appreciate. Right. Fad diets. Okay. So,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
that was
how,
interesting. And also, before we get into fad
sure,
diets, for
go.
people that don't know, dopamine is not like the feel good. Dopamine is your anticipatory. Dopamine is anticipatory.
Hmm.
So it's not just like the feel good is like serotonin and stuff, but dopamine is like that anticipatory spike that your brain gets. So just the more you know. But
Well,
fad
that's
diets.
fad diet. Well, I guess the first thing is, well, what is a fad diet, right?
Yeah.
Well, a fad diet, you can usually characterize a fad diet because it has usually been assigned some sort of magical properties. Okay, so that's the first thing that you can say how you can identify a fad diet. So you take like this diet that someone's promoting, and it almost gives it kind of mythical status. It's often got
Mhm.
amazing marketing behind it. So I don't know, just eat like animal offal, like liver and kidney and stuff like that, and that crap that the Liver King was talking about. It's going to help you improve your health beyond no ends, or something like this, or like it's the watermelon diet or something like that, right? So that's the first thing, right? They usually involve rituals as well, but very often there's exclusions of full food groups. So like carbs
Mhm.
are banned, right? And then that's a macronutrient. So that means like all cereals are out, all starches are out, all fruits and vegetables, a lot of them are out as well. Or it's
Mhm.
like, I don't know, the polycystic ovary diet. So you need to take particular like acai berries or something like that, and they have to be consumed at this time of the day. So that's the ritualistic part of it, yeah.
Okay.
Other sides of it as well is they often offer unbelievable results. So they often say things like, okay, that it's going to help you lose 5, 6, 7 kilos in a week or something like that, right? So you've got these different aspects of what are fad diets. Very often they're not backed by science. So it's very often pseudoscience. So it's like there
Mhm.
might be some sort of thing like the low carb diet because it doesn't spike insulin prevents diabetes. Now that's long since been debunked, right? We know that carbs don't cause diabetes. We know that it's too much adiposity causes diabetes, right? So,
Mhm.
and that we know people eat carbohydrate diets and they lose weight, right? So you can see like it doesn't make sense, right? When you actually think about it for a second, but people go with this, well, carbs, insulin bad, diabetes, poor health, right? It's nonsense. So these are characteristics of bad diets, right? Now, when it comes to weight loss, right? Just talk about trying to lose weight. We're not talking about body recomposition, e.g., losing fat, retaining muscle, or building muscle, right? Or maintaining bone mass or something like that. Just when it comes to weight loss, if you look at the guidelines from over here in the UK, so we've got the National Health Service, or if you look in
Mhm.
America, you've got the National Institute of Health and Clinical Care and Excellence, right? Which is
Mhm.
nice. They're from there. Their guidelines when it comes to weight loss are that you need to create a calorie deficit and that the advice around the weight loss is that professionals should help in finding a dietary approach which works best within your client or patient's lifestyle, which they can most adhere to, right? Which basically leaves
Mhm.
it all open for they should probably follow a healthy diet with whatever low carb, high carb kind of approach, low fat, high fat approach maybe works best for them. Because when you look at the research, right, Paige, what you see is this high carb versus low carb, high fat versus low fat. As long as the protein's kind of maintained, the effects of these different types of diets are more or less the same when it comes to weight loss. Yeah. So people kind of lose as long as you create that calorie deficit. It doesn't matter if you're doing like intermittent fasting or keto or whatever. It kind of all work out about the same. Some might do slightly better when it comes to a slightly more initial weight loss, but when you look at
Mhm.
after like 6 months, it's all about the same. And then the other side of it is like, well, what is the most sustainable in terms of you can follow maybe long term for weight loss? Because most people will lose about maybe 5% of their weight within the 6 months. So it's not huge amounts, it's something. But the real danger is most people regain that weight within the next 6 months again after that. Like that's the problem. So keeping it off as well. So, and to come back around to your original question about like what do I think of these fad diets? Look, a lot of them are nonsense. They outright are absolute and they've got no basis in science at all. Um, but then when it comes to like sports nutrition and it comes to nutrition and you're trying to get people to lose weight, then we've got a toolkit. And it's like, well, what can we take out this toolkit here, which is going to be most beneficial to help that individual lose the weight that they need to
Mhm.
lose? And it's still got its basis in good nutritional science and in practice. Yeah. If you see what I mean. And we could rattle off like different types of diets and stuff, but that hopefully answers your question.
What is a good nutritional practice just for an everyday person? Like
Gosh,
what do
yes.
because I've especially in America, I don't
Yeah.
I don't know about over there, but we are so from what I've seen nutritionally deficient, right? Like I myself have iron deficiency. A lot of my friends have, you know, vitamin deficiencies. Like what is a good nutritional practice to keep your body functioning at a high level.
Okay. Well, so the first thing to say on that, I mean, that's what is a good diet? So a high performance diet is a healthy diet, right? That's the
Okay.
first thing I say, right? So if you take your athlete and they just eat a healthy, balanced diet, kind of like what your FDA guidelines are, then they'll perform really well. To be frank with you, they might need a little bit of adjustments in terms of the total amount of calories that they're consuming.
Mhm.
Might need to eat a little bit more protein. But that would do you pretty well if you were to follow it. It's just the problem is that when you survey people, like over here in the UK, we've got this idea of eat five a day, right? Five fruits and vegetables a day. A portion of fruits and vegetables is 80 grams, and that's if you just hold your hand out and like a palm in the palm of your hand, that's about 80 grams, right? Now we know this.
Mhm.
We advertise it everywhere. Eat five a day, eat 5 a day. But we know that the general population eats around about two portions a day, right? And if
Mhm.
you go over to the States, I think the guidance is between about 7 to 9 portions a day, right? And I'd be willing to bet you guys are about the same, about two portions a day. So people just generally speaking are not following the basic public health guideline. And in my
Mhm.
time in the world of nutrition, and I started my studies in 2002, 2003. So it's been over 20 years now. Public health's been a complete disaster. Like it's failed. Like it's failed. Like nobody can tell me that it's not failed because when I look at the statistics, 68% of our UK adults over here are obese or overweight in the UK, right? That's based on BMI, right? If you look at it
Mhm.
based on like body fat percentage rather than BMI, the numbers are worse, right? And I've seen the graphs that go up on a trajectory like this. So they just go up longitudinal over time. So people in the last 20 years that I've been studying this have just got more out of shape, they've got fatter, they've got less fit, right? And that's
Mhm.
a societal issue. And you guys have got the same problem over
Oh,
in
we're
the
worse. We're
yeah,
worse, dude.
I know you guys are worse because I've seen the stats, right? So I know you've got a new guy in charge of the FD over there, RFK, and he's got a lot of critics, right? But like he could hardly do a worse job. Like the bar is so
Right.
low, and what you have put, whatever your political stance is, like it's been a complete failure. So
Mhm.
like, and so you guys have got new guidelines, and it's been heavily criticised the new guidelines, but like I think most of that is around the messaging that you've made like a pyramid, which is kind of upside down, and it's actually more
Mhm.
of a triangle and not a pyramid. And the idea is that you eat most from each point of the pyramid, of the triangle rather. But as soon as you see a pyramid, you think, right, I prioritize things of it, and it's not
Mhm.
that, right? It's not that at all. So I think the messaging is not good, um, on that one. But to take it sort of round here, full circle again, what is a good diet? Well, we've known for a very long time what is a good diet. So if we can take just a plate in general, if you eat around about a half to a third of your diet came from high quality fruits and vegetables, another third of your plate kind of comes from starchy sources, which are kind of whole grains. So things like
Mhm.
non-processed starches, like cereals, like breads, which are whole grain. You're eating potatoes, which have got like the skins on them and stuff like that. Whole grain rice and pasta and so on, and you're doing that. And then another third of your plate is coming from like high quality protein sources. So we're talking about things like high quality dairy. It doesn't even have to be low fat. Um, Lean cuts of protein. So we're talking meats, like fish, poultry, and even red
Mm.
meat's okay as well. And then if we're consuming like healthy oils, so things like our vegetable oils are probably better for us. If we can kind of eat like that, then we're doing really well, right? It's just that we overconsume ultra processed food. So that's like anything
Yeah.
that comes in a box that you can just chuck in the microwave oven. It's pre-made, that might have lots and lots of ingredients in it. If you just mainly ate food rather than like food-like products, because it's not really food, right? And listen, I like a burger as much as anyone, right? I've been the In-N-Out
Yeah.
burger. I've been at Five Guys. I've been it all, right? I love a burger. But if you just cooked from scratch and made your own stuff and just ate food, and I'm not even talking about like it has to be organic, just eat food, then you'd be doing a lot better. Now we can talk about like protein intake and carbohydrate intakes and all this sort of stuff, but and those are other discussions. But people just don't eat food, right? And they don't eat
Yeah.
like what we're trying to suggest that they should eat from there. And discussions about like iron deficiency and vitamin D deficiency. I think these are interesting discussions as well, particularly over in Europe, where a lot of countries are changing their national food guidelines based around trying to minimize red meat intake because we think it's potentially bad for us. But also from another perspective, that things like animal-based products have got a high carbon and environmental output. Now, as a
Mhm.
nutritionist and as a scientist, I come at it from two perspectives. I sort of think like we should be putting out the information to the public to say this is what a healthy diet looks like. And when we've got half the UK population suffering from potentially iron deficiency, and the half being the female population, right? Because guys don't
Yeah.
lose iron obviously at the same rate as women. And that we've got a large proportion of our population suffer from vitamin D deficiency, and a lot of
Mhm.
iron and vitamin D. The best sources of those things are dairy, and they are eggs and animal-based products. There's certainly an agenda, which is certainly a political one, and there's no doubt about reducing carbon emissions and things like that as well. And I'm not sure
Mhm.
nutrition should be venturing into that area, but that's a whole other discussion on there, which I think is an interesting one, and it's one that we're coming to terms with, and I think we'll have a reckoning with in the next few years. So I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, and we can come back to this specifically about some of these points that are raised. But does that kind of give you an idea of what a healthy diet
Yeah.
kind of could be?
1000%. And I guess my follow-up question to that, is at least here,
Yeah,
our doctors and whatnot push
yeah,
protein, protein, protein,
yeah,
protein. And you sound like you're more, hey, veggies, fruit, protein, carbs, starches, and I just what is this whole like protein push, that they do? Like why I know protein's important, obviously, but from whenever I've spoken to
mm,
my doctor and whatnot, their whole
yeah,
basis for protein is Well, it's going to make you fuller. Protein's
Yeah,
going to make you more full, and it's the best thing to eat. It's low carb. It's, you know,
yeah,
should be
yeah.
leaner, etc. Is that the right thing?
It's a great question. And look, there's lots of nuance here. There's lots of nuance here. I'm pushing veggies and whole grains and starches and all this sort of stuff. Um, because people just don't eat enough of it, first and foremost. The
Mhm.
other element of it is dietary fiber. And fiber is really important, right? Really important. UK guidelines are 29 grams a day. Average person in the UK consumes around about 14 grams, right? They're getting half the amount, right? And colorectal cancer is the number one killer in terms of cancers for men in the world, right?
Wow.
Kill outright. For women, it's breast cancer, right? Like colorectal
Mhm.
cancer is a major issue, right? Major issue. So we are not consuming enough fruits and vegetables. We're not consuming enough whole grains. And you want to be healthy, you need these things and you need the fiber, right? It's really important for your health, right? Really, really important for health. On the other side of things, protein's so important as well. Protein's really important. And there's a lot of different angles you can come at on this. So in the UK, national guidelines around protein are 0.75 to zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, which works out around about 55 to 60 grams of protein. Tiny amounts, right? But that assumes that you are sedentary, sitting on your ass all day, not really doing a lot, right?
Yeah.
Just trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
maintain health, right? Now, we are living in a aging population, right? Everyone is getting older in the West, right? We're all living
Mm.
longer, okay? And there's a distinction you want to make between lifespan and health span. Okay. Because
Mhm.
what's the point of living till 90, 100 years old, 110, if at 80 you're knackered and you've got, I don't know, a walking stick and you've got poor health and you've got another 20 years or something like that, right? I don't fear old age. I fear being infirm, right? That's the fear, right? And as you age, people lose protein mass. They lose muscle tissue,
Mm.
right? And if you're someone like me who's probably going to work out for the rest of their life, God forbid anything going to happen, touch wood, um, I'll probably be okay and I'll maintain my protein tissue and I'll be all right, right? And certainly there's a link between muscle mass and mortality. There's a link between muscle mass and disease, e.g., the more you've got, less likely. There's also links between low muscle mass and things like cognitive health, right? And
Mhm.
dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like this as well. Now, as you get older, you lose muscle mass. There's something called anabolic resistance. So your muscle does not respond to protein in the same way it used to. Now, very briefly, you eat protein, a switch gets turned on in your muscle called mTOR. That tells your muscle to start building new protein tissue, right? And if you work out, you build more muscle tissue, right? As you age, your muscle becomes resistant to that signal from the protein. So you need even more protein to offset that signal, right? So you need even more going
Mm.
on with that. So your protein demands as you get older should arguably be higher. So from a public health perspective, and you guys in the USA have actually increased your protein recommendations. And I think it's probably a good thing, right? We've got different recommendations over here in the UK. And I think that's twofold. That is population is out of shape, overweight, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if we can get you guys to eat more protein, you'll eat less of that other stuff, and those obesity statistics and everything like that you got are going to come down. Like I said before, like you got to take a different approach. What's the messaging and everything like that that's gone out there before? It's just not worked, right? So you need to
Yeah.
try something different, right? And maybe this is the thing. But I mean, I don't know if the FDA's budget compared to what Coca-Cola's budget in terms of advertising, well, like it's a loose battle in terms of trying
Mhm.
to get the message together. So that's one perspective. It's potentially going to fill you up, keep you fuller for longer. That, and then you're maybe not going to go out and eat all the snacks and the crisps and the soda and whatever that you're going to have. And maybe as you age, having that higher protein diet at the same time is going to help you not have diseases associated with later life at the same time. So there's two prongs on it. So protein's super important, and I don't disagree with the messaging. And your doctors again are going to be like, yes, it's probably good advice. High protein foods like animal-based products, particularly for women, if you eat more red meat, that's going to be good for your and iron absorption. So you're going to get that because
Mhm.
animal-based products are the
Yeah.
best source of iron, but they're also associated with like higher things like vitamin D. And you guys in North America and us in the UK, a lot of you guys in North America, I mean Texas might be okay, are above 40 degrees in terms of the latitude. Sorry, no,
Mhm.
the longitude, and you're more likely to be vitamin D deficient. So again, high protein foods associated with these higher amounts of things like vitamin D, calcium, etc. Yeah, does that make sense? Does that answer your question on
Yeah,
protein?
absolutely. Absolutely. So let me kind of pivot here for a second.
Sure.
Okay. For those that are listening that are not bodybuilders, we've
Sure.
kind of covered, you know, what a diet should be. And
Yeah.
I want to point out this, okay? I hate the term diet. I
Yeah.
hate the term diet because it should be a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that is the key to losing or maintaining whatever weight you're at. It is a
Yeah.
lifestyle change forever and ever. Amen. And that doesn't mean that, you don't have days where you eat junk food or whatever.
Yep.
But for me, it is 90% of the time I am eating in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
10%, I might, if I'm going out to dinner with friends or whatever, that's that. But I hate the term diet, and I truly believe it should be a lifestyle. But let me ask, for those that are listening that are not bodybuilders, etc., how many days a week or how many minutes? Like I know for here, our doctors are like exercise at least, 3 times a week, whether that be walking or running. And
Yeah.
I personally, I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner. I don't enjoy it. I do Pilates, yoga, kickboxing. I do my runs at kickboxing on our warm ups. But is walking like enough for someone who just wants to not live a sedentary lifestyle? You know, maybe they're not strength training. Like, is walking enough to help the body um, maintain whatever it needs to maintain to be healthy?
Okay. It's a good question. Short answer is no. Okay.
Okay.
That's the short answer. That is the short answer, right? So when you go see your doctor, and when we talk about like guidelines around exercise and so on. What you've got to realize is those guidelines that governments put out around exercise, those are basically the minimal amount of effective exercise that they think they can get the general public to do.
Okay.
Right. So let that sink in. That's what the minimum amount they think they can get people probably to do is, right? And it's pitifully low. So in the UK, we're talking 150 minutes of physical activity a week.
Mhm.
Okay. And within that context, e- each bout of physical activity should be at least 10 minutes where your heart is elevated, right? So
Mhm.
that's what it is. Or it's 75 minutes of what is we call vigorous activity, right? So that's the recommendation in the UK. Now, interestingly, they say that two of those sessions should be strength based. Two. So there is an acknowledgement from UK government officials and health boards, etc., that like walking's not enough. You need
Yeah.
to do some sort of weight bearing exercise. Okay, whether it's Tai Chi, yoga, calisthenics, whatever it is, that you should be doing some type of resistance training. And when you look at the research in this, right? So I'm presenting this year at a conference on osteoporosis, right? So bone health, bone disease. And
Mhm.
this is these studies, right? Going for walks and stuff like that is not enough to maintain your bone mineral density. So as you age,
Okay.
you have to do some sort of higher impact weight bearing type exercise, right? Because it's just not enough. You'll just lose bone mass over time. So when you're asking like, is walking enough? Well, look, it's better than nothing. Better than
Right.
nothing, right? I'd rather you went doing some walks, but you have to do a bit more than that because contractions put stress on your muscles, sorry, put stress on your bones and tell your bones to maintain density. And just going for a walk, it doesn't really do all that much in terms of the stress that you place on the body. And they studied this, right? As soon as you put weights in your hand and go walk, start to build more bone mineral density, right?
Mhm.
That's where it is. So it's that classic Darwinian evolution, right? Organism is perfectly adapted to the environment that you put it in, right? So you become a fat slob, or you just sit down all day and you just eat snacks all the time, right? You're adapted, right? You're getting good at storing all this stuff,
Yeah.
right? So and then your bones waste away because you've not had to put any
Yeah.
strength on them, right? From there. So you have to do something. What you do is up to you. It should be fun. If you don't like going for a run page, then listen, that's fine. You don't like running,
Not doing
that's
it.
okay. But you got your things that you like doing, and they're your passion, right? You like hitting that bag, that's great. That's
Mhm.
cool because you're putting stress on yourself. But do something you enjoy doing. That's half the battle. But to
Yeah.
make sure it's a little bit challenging, so that you can build that bone health, build the muscle tissue as well. Again, that 2 strength sessions a week. That's again so that you build muscle tissue, so that you're healthier in later life. At the same
Yeah.
time, so you can offset things like type 2 diabetes and so on.
Let me ask this.
Go for
So
it.
when we talk about strength training,
Yeah,
resistance training, I think a lot of people's mindset around that is whoosh, lifting weights,
lifting
right?
weights. Yeah,
But you just said yoga could be that,
yeah,
Pilates,
yeah,
kickboxing. So what you're saying is do more than walking, but incorporate this strength and resistance training. And that could
yeah,
be something other than just going to the gym and lifting
yeah.
weights. That could be yoga
Could be.
or Pilates. And I think that's where a lot of people, get it wrong because they think that they have to have that gym membership or they have to, attend a class. But there are so many resources out there on YouTube
Yep.
that it does not cost that much,
No,
right? Like
not at
you
all.
don't need a lot of materials. What is your like for someone who maybe can't afford to go to the gym, like what would you tell them?
Well, I mean, that's a good question actually, and you raised such great points there. There's so many resources. Listen, if I just wanted to stay healthy, I could go out for a run around the parks and streets and things like that I've got around me.
Mhm.
I could do calisthenics like bodyweight exercises in my house, and that would keep me perfectly fit and trim and healthy. But I could also go on YouTube. There's no shortage of people doing yoga lessons and yoga classes that you could follow. And there's enough resources on YouTube just around yoga itself that would last me a lifetime that I wouldn't have time to go through them all. There must be a million and I'm not exaggerating, because how many YouTube accounts you think there are? There's
Right.
maybe at least 300,000 yoga instructors on there putting out videos, right? On that. So
Yeah.
you could go on there and you could do something with that. Very, very cheap. You could go to a park. Lots of parks here in the UK have got little exercise things set up on them so you can do stuff outside and exercise for free. You could join your community college or your community gym, which might have a swimming pool, which might have a basic
Mhm.
gym in terms of that. Or you could join like a little sports club or something like that. It doesn't have to be expensive. If I wanted to cut out expenses in my lifestyle, I mean, like I could buy the equipment and work out the home and then I've got it forever after that. But like
Yeah.
you could do all these things. And yoga's tough.
Yeah.
Like I
Yoga is
struggle with
tough.
standing on one leg and doing all that stuff. And I've always got scope to improve at yoga. Always, always got scope.
Mm.
Like there's loads of
Oh,
things you can do around that. Does that answer your
listen.
question? You can do whatever you
Yes,
want.
and I do hot yoga.
I've done
And
that.
that
It's
is
tough,
like
right?
my jam. But
That's
let's circle back with this cost thing too, because you said something earlier that I want to touch on. I know in America, a lot of people here, I assume same in the UK, live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah,
And when we were talking about food and diet, you
yeah,
had said organic doesn't even matter. And I think a lot of people, at least here, it's so much it genuinely can be cheaper to run through McDonald's than going to the grocery store sometimes, which is sad, right? It's cheaper for them to go get meals from, the dollar menu than or they think than to go, to the grocery store and buy a pound of mincemeat or
mhm,
veggies. How are canned vegetables are cheaper here
yeah,
than fresh veggies.
mhm.
If they have to make these replacements to accommodate their budget, you said organic doesn't matter. So, we can already throw that out the window. But if they have to make these replacements like canned veggies or frozen veggies, is that still enough to, you know, help with maintaining that healthy lifestyle? I know obviously that fresh is best, but for those listening that maybe fresh doesn't always accommodate their budget,
Okay, so
is
these are
canned
good.
okay?
Yeah, it's, for sure. So that's the first answer to the question. So if you look at the scientific literature, people are always putting studies out, right, on organic stuff. And what they kind of show is that, like, okay, you take your organic vegetables versus normal vegetables, and you might see like a higher amount of vitamin A in it or minerals in it or something, right?
Mhm.
But then when you do the study, you see, okay, well, do people live longer consuming the organic vegetables versus the non-organic vegetables? You, or do they have more or less diseases? You typically you don't see any difference in the long-term kind of health outcomes, right? But there's a lot of stuff going on there, right? Because you
Mhm.
talk about how good are the methodologies that people are using to record people's intakes. Um, if you're someone that eats a lot of vegetables in any case, and you're doing that comparison, then maybe there's other parts of your lifestyle which are very healthy, e.g., you don't smoke, you don't drink, you do a lot of exercise,
Right.
stuff like that. So the effects of that offset the fact of the minimal effects you might see from organic, which might be tiny, right? It may be a
Yeah.
1% or 0.5%, and that doesn't show up over the course of a lifetime like you might think it does. So people always talk about these 1%, but they might be less than 1% and they might be completely trivial. So that's what you're kind of seeing with that sort of stuff. However, it doesn't say anything about the individual. It's just you're taking like the average, right? So you don't know what's happening on the
Mhm.
individual level like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to realize that my PhD is in the gut microbiota, and I studied oats and barley, and I got to go onto fields and be in tractors and all this sort of stuff. And it was great fun, right? Being on a
Yeah.
farm because I'm a city boy, right? Really,
Yeah.
I am. So
Edinburgh.
yeah, from Edinburgh, yeah, from Edinburgh. So doing all that stuff was great, right? You got to realize that farmers are not trying to produce bad quality products, right?
Mhm.
Just because they're mass producing doesn't mean that it's necessarily a poor product, right? They're adding fertilizer to it to increase the yield so you get more of
Right.
it, but they're also adding things to it to fortify it, to give it a higher vitamin and mineral content than it otherwise might potentially have. They're spraying them with herbicides and pesticides so that they can protect them from pests, so they can get higher yields. They are picking crops which consumers like in terms of flavors. They are picking crops which are more drought resilient, which are more
Mhm.
um, irrigation resilient, e.g., so they don't get waterlogged. So they're not trying to pick poor products all the sort of time. And the amount of pesticides and things like that and so on that they can use are regulated so that you don't over spray your fields because that potentially will give you
Yeah.
a negative effect on your health. Now you can talk about the do you believe or not that these farmers and big farms in the pockets of big pesticides and all that if you want, right? And go down that route. But they're not trying to produce bad quality stuff, right? The farmers are proud of the stuff that they're producing. And if you've got like genetically modified crops, well, these things can be great because you can get something which you can get higher yield out of. You can use less
Mhm.
fertilizer on it. You can add vitamin A to it, so you can create golden rice, and you can offset vitamin A deficiencies in sub-Saharan Africa, which is a major issue, right? So it's not
Yeah.
all bad. It's like these other conversations we're having earlier on about protein. There's nuance, right? And people get
Mhm.
emotional, really emotional. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this. And there's trade-offs here, right? So in terms of fresh foods and stuff like this, if you take a crop and you chuck it, you get some peas and you harvest them. If you immediately freeze them, you lock in the nutrients, right?
Mhm.
So so frozen food is not necessarily worse than fresh in terms of the nutrients which are in there, right? If you take
Yeah.
certain foods and you can them, often you have to heat them to make sure that they're sterilized and stuff. But you might lose some of the nutrients which are in there, like particularly the vitamins and vitamin C's, particularly we call it labile,
Mhm.
what we're going to diminish. But you're going to get other nutrients in there as well at the same time, right? Which is better than not having those canned carrots or something like that in there. You still might retain a lot of the vitamin A, and that's still better. And you still got the fiber content and so on from here. And then the other thing
Yeah.
to say is like, look, it might cost you $1 to eat off the dollar menu, right? But if you've got good cooking skills, then you might
Mhm.
be able to go to the shop and you spend your $10 on your food, but that might be able to make 4 meals for you at
Exactly.
$2.50, which lasts you 4 separate days, right? So, like,
Mhm.
if you've got the skill to cook, it isn't necessarily more expensive than just eating your fast food stuffs and everything like that. In fact, we all live so conveniently all the time and
Right.
everything like that as well. That we're always running around grabbing things here and there that we've not always got the time to sit down and have a meal. And that's another conversation as well. Does that answer your
Right.
question?
Yeah, 1000%. I just think a lot of people, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but just from the conversations that I have, they're like, "Oh, I can't afford it. It's easier to do this and da da da." Da." And there are so many nuances, like you said,
Yeah,
like you mentioned GMOs. Every label in America is non-GMOs. And it's like, well, do we actually like no one knows what any of this stuff actually is. They just
yeah,
see this marketing label, and that's what I'm going to call it, a marketing label, non-GMOs, and then they hike up the price,
yeah.
you know? And no hormones and da 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 da. And it's like, do we actually know what this is? I feel like we're just paying a higher price for a scare tactic.
But potentially, yeah, potentially. Now, I'm not saying like if you can afford to eat organic and have your chicken, which is from a free range chicken in a field and
Mhm.
like it's been got great welfare around it and it's lovely, then amazing, right? Good.
Right.
And I'm not against any of that.
Right.
I'm not against any of
Right.
that. And I'm glad to see that your man over there in the States, RFK, is taking steps to try and reduce things like fertilizers and the use of
Yeah.
animal hormones and that's all good. It's definitely all good. But it's also not black or white because
Mhm.
if you've got a crop which you don't treat with fertilizer, then you might get a lower yield. You might have to then have more fields to grow the same amount of crops. And then you might have to that means have more goes in a combine tractor, more fuel gets used in that. So the
Mhm.
cost of that in terms of carbon goes up. So these arguments sometimes are they're circular, right? If you see what I mean, and then you're putting more
Yeah.
pollutants into the environment. So like there are no solutions. It's just trade offs. If you see what
Correct. I just I just think that people, if you can afford to buy that stuff, perfect. But if you can't, it's okay because you're still getting better nutrition by cooking your own meals,
yeah,
as assuming you're following what we spoke about,
yeah,
than going through the drive-through and having these processed foods.
yeah, and
Like,
that is. Oh, sorry, go on.
no, go ahead.
again, there's a bit of personal responsibility though that needs to be taken as
Mhm.
well. Like you've got to kind of own it and know what your goals are and what you want to achieve and guess what
Yeah.
you want to get out of life. What sort of lifestyles you want to have.
1000%.
Now, the gut microbiota is my speciality here, right? And we said we talk about this, and I realize we
Yes.
haven't got on it at all. So, do you want
I
some gut?
know.
Do
Yes,
you want
I
to know?
do. I want I
Okay,
want I want it. And I know that we're at the hour and I do still have the question for you. So,
okay. I'll tell you this story then, right? I'll tell you
okay.
this story. 'Cause you'll like this, right? So again, this is do already the neurological podcast. You taught me about anticipatory neurotransmitters
Mhm.
earlier on, right? So people are really keen on the colonic gut microbiota, right?
Yes.
And the effects that this can potentially have on your overall health, right? So the gastrointestinal tract, right? Your mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then the accessory organs that go on it, right? Is home to the largest collection of microbes anywhere in the world, right? It's the densest populated area is in your gut, and you've got 10 times to the power of 14 microbes per gram of material in there, so or per mil, right? So 14 trillion bugs
Yeah.
per gram. So it's insanely populated with microbes, right? Anywhere between 100 to 150 unique species living within your colon, okay? And within those
Yeah.
species, God knows how many strains, right? It's like dog.
Right.
How many different types of dogs are there, right? And people are making new
Yeah.
dogs all the time, right? New breeds.
Mm.
And bugs are like that. So well, you've got this type of dog, there's about 50 different types of strain of that dog, right? So like the
Yeah.
combinations that people can have they're infinite, right? Infinite. Now, gosh, it's so complex, right? So complex. Now, what those bugs do, right? They ferment nutrients that make their way through to the large intestine, right? So you eat food, right? You break it down into its smaller constituent parts into the macronutrients. You absorb the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, right? Anything you can't absorb in the upper gastrointestinal tract makes its way through to the lower bowel, to the gut, right? And then those bugs, they ferment it, right? And what I mean by ferment is they eat the material that comes in, right? And they produces a byproduct, CO2,
Mhm.
methane, too much methane, we know what happens, right? You can make those jokes yourself. Um,
Yeah.
no, you don't. That's a good stop. And then you also get short chain fatty acids, acetate, propionate, butyrate, right? Your body
Mhm.
absorbs acetate, propionate, and butyrate, takes them up. Acetate goes to the liver, you use it as an energy source. Propionate and butyrate, your colonocytes will use them as energy sources as well, right? So that's what it's doing, right? So for about a gram of fiber, you might get anywhere between 0 calories to 4 calories from that gram of fiber. And there's lots of different types of fiber, and everyone's got different like configurations of bugs which live in there,
Mhm.
right? So they get energy from the bugs, right? So that's what they do. And these compounds, they're anti-carcinogenic, right? So it's good that you produce this stuff, right? Because they're acids. That acids get produced, it lowers your pH, right? We want a low
Mhm.
pH in the gut, right? That's why fiber is important, right? Because you don't have any fiber, they've got nothing to live off, and the pH increases. And you know what? The bad bugs, they like high pHs. That's how they live. They live under high pH conditions. They start to produce lots of different compounds which interact with your colonocytes, and then they're carcinogenic, right? Not good. Not good. The other thing that those bugs do is that's the first interaction with your immune system, right? If you take animals,
Mhm.
you take out their gut microbiotas, you raise them in germ-free environments, their intestinal tract just doesn't develop. They just don't develop an immune system because they've had no interactions with bugs. So you've got twofold, right? You've got this, or threefold. You've got the development of the gastrointestinal tract, you've got the absorption of nutrients in there, and then you've got the immune system. So that's the key kind of roles within your gut, right? That your bugs do, right? important stuff, right? And if you change what comes in, it changes what happens in here, right? And the paradigm or the problem is always like, are the bugs causing the disease? Or is it that
Mhm.
you've got the disease probably from a poor diet and lifestyle, which has led to the bugs changing, and the bugs are a consequence of that? And it's maybe a little bit of both, although I'm kind of the opinion that it's what you eat
Yeah.
affects the bugs, and the bugs are a change as a consequence, and that's just a manifestation of the disease. However, there's a lot of people earning a living where their whole career is based around the gut microbiota, so they maybe push one side
Yeah.
more than the other, right? I'm skeptic. So anyway, your gastrointestinal tract, right? Outside of your brain is the largest collection of nervous tissue within your body, right? The enteric nervous system, part of your autonomous nervous system, which
Yep.
means that it controls automatically by your, oh gosh, by your brain stem. Is it your medulla oblongata, which
Ba-
is probably doing that? Have I got that right?
I believe so. Or yes.
You're
Well, and
right.
then you have your vagus nerve and all that.
So that's getting controlled by there. So that's got peristaltic motion. It's got heuristic motion, and it's turning things over, and it's doing all this. It's all happening automatically, right? Now, bugs that live in your gut produce these different compounds, right? Some of these compounds interact with the nervous system directly, right? And the
Mhm.
argument is this: maybe bugs that live in your gut are wanting certain compounds, certain nutrients, certain foods, more sugar. And as a consequence of that, they produce certain metabolites, acetate, propionate, butyrate. And those compounds interact with the nervous system, send the signal to the brain, and then you go, all right,
Mhm.
I need to go out and get more sugar because I'm getting this signal which is coming from my gut microbiota, which is driving that, right? Now, there's a precedent for it. So in the animal kingdom, there's a parasite, toxoplasmosis, right?
Mhm.
What it does, or rather, that's the disease. I forget what the parasite's name is in felines, so in cats, right?
Yeah.
This is where the bug lives. And in cat poo, okay? The cat
Yeah.
excretes the poo. The mouse comes along, eats all the poo and all the sort of stuff and the nutrients that's around there, gets the parasite in its body. The parasite infects the gastrointestinal tract. And what happens is, with this parasite, it makes the mouse or the rodent lose its inhibitions and fear, right? So it goes about doing its normal duties in life and everything like that.
Yeah.
See the cat, it's not worried, right? Whereas normally it'd be getting a signal that says, there's a cat around. I'm like, fuck,
Danger.
right? Like,
Yeah.
danger, danger. But doesn't get a signal. So the cat then comes along and eats the mouse, gets the toxoplasmosis parasite in itself, excretes it, mouse comes along, eats it, and that's the life cycle, right? Goes round and round like that.
Yeah.
You've got this precedent, right, in the animal kingdom of microbes, bugs influencing behavioral patterns, yeah, that are going on.
Yeah.
But so from here, now I'm not saying this is what's happening when you eat sugar and that your microbes interact and it sends this thing like that. But I'm not saying that, right? I'm just saying we have
Mhm.
examples in the animal kingdom where this has happened. So it's not a completely crazy idea. I don't know if I believe it because you've got other discussions around free will here and determinism.
Mhm.
And if you like to think that you're in control of yourself, then you maybe don't buy that, right? But certainly
Right.
there's an example of there from the animal kingdom. So that I think is quite a nice little story that relates to your bugs and your gut microbiota,
Y-
which you can talk about in terms of
Yeah.
the neuroscience.
But
That's
but
all I've got.
I do have something about fiber though. You keep bringing
Oh,
up fiber, and I actually recently learned that your fiber intake increases your serotonin. And for those that don't know, serotonin in the brain is like what makes you feel bonded and happier. I did not know that until the other day that, like, we need more fiber than we think we do, and that actually helps increase your brain's serotonin. So
Oh,
I believe
I did
it.
not know that.
Like,
There you go.
the stuff that you consume obviously can affect your mood.
Yeah. Well,
And
obviously,
so
right? I mean,
yeah.
you see a
And
piece of cake and you enjoy it, you like the look of it, you eat it and you feel happy. So, I mean,
yeah, but
the link's there, right?
right.
So, why would fiber not do that as well?
Yeah, I just I had no idea, and I think that, you have to be mindful of what you're consuming because I know for me, when I eat crappy or shitty, I'm like, ugh, like so sluggish,
Yeah,
and I just feel like shit, dude. Like, and it's so, and it just, it's a cascade, right?
yeah,
It's a cascade. When I eat like that consistently, I don't have motivation. I don't want to work out. I don't want to do any of these things. And so
yeah,
I just think it's so important to be mindful of that. Like what you're consuming has such an impact on your lifestyle and your life and even your like mental fortitude.
yeah.
But okay, I know we're a little over, but I do have a question from my
Go for
number
it.
one fan.
Well,
He's my number one fan, my number one listener. So he said, I was telling him that we were recording, and he asked me this, and I was like, I'll ask Andrew, what do you know about beta blockers?
oh gosh, not a lot. To
Okay.
be perfectly frank, my understanding is that your body produces catecholamines. You guys call them adrenaline and
Yeah,
noradrenaline. We call them uh, epinephrine and norepinephrine. And that
yeah.
sends a signal to the heart, which tells it to increase the
Mhm.
speed. So we've got the parasympathetic nervous system and the nerve and the sympathetic nervous system. And depending on which
Mhm.
one is being signaled at the time,
Activated.
then we
Yeah.
upregulate the heart rate or downregulate the heart rate in response to from there. And how the beta blocker works is that it interacts with that system and tells you to either usually probably negate the effects of it so that you don't get a higher heart rate. And people are often prescribed this to help manage blood pressure and so on, or as like an anti-anxiety medication. So
Yeah.
that's what I know. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't have much more
Well,
with it.
so yes, and he was asking. He has a pretty stressful job and
Yeah.
is going through some transitions right now. But I was like, I don't know. I'll ask Andrew. But here's what I found out after kind of researching it on my own. Oftentimes we mislabel anxiety,
Hmm.
and what we label as anxiety is exactly what you just said, adrenaline.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was so interesting to to do kind of a dive on beta blockers that it does. It lowers your nervous system obviously and like
Yeah.
tells your body like, hey, like we're good, stand down, go into a sympathetic state. But do you believe in supplements or anything like that? Or are you a big supplement guy, like protein powder or
Well,
pre-workout or
it's a good question. To just talk about the beta blockers for a second there. I mean, what's effectively happening is that you've got your fight or flight system
yes.
switched on to the max. And our fight or flight system is important because if you have to um, run away from a lion or a great big rock's
Mhm.
going to crush you, then you need to be able to quickly mobilize fuel stores, e.g., get that fast acting carbohydrate into the muscle quickly to do the contractions that you need, alongside increasing the heart rate, get the oxygen around the body and the blood around the body that you need. So that's why it's there. But if you're in a state where like fight or flight is switched on all the time,
Mhm.
then that's effectively what's happening, and that's what we call stress, right? That's
Yep.
stress, right? And then anxiety. Now the right amount of stress we call fun, right? Because that's what fun is.
Yeah.
If you go on a roller coaster, you've got that nice defined period of 90 seconds or 60 seconds of high increases in our heart rate and all that sort of stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
It's all packaged. Then you get it off it, right? And then your heart rate comes down again after a minute, right? So you've got your fight or flight switched on all the time. And look, you might have to take a beta blocker for what's going on in your life at that particular moment in time. Um, but look, any system, right? The healthier that system is, the better it's going to cope with stress. That fair play.
Mhm.
So if you've got a healthy BMI, healthy body fat levels, you're eating a good diet, you're resting well, you're recovering well, you're exercising regularly, you're getting enough fluids. If you are in that situation and you've got a stressful job, you will cope with that stress better than if you are overweight, poor body fat, smoking, drinking, not sleeping, all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
right? Because just healthy systems just do better, right? Same with if you
Right.
like, I don't know, have got um type 1 diabetes or like you suffering from depression, like you'll just do better being in a healthy state, right? Not to downplay the importance of pharmacology or anything like that. And if you've got good coping strategies on top of that, even even better, right?
Yep.
Even better. In terms of the questions around supplements, I have published a number of research papers on dietary supplements because I'm interested in them. Like, do they work effectively?
Yeah.
Is what I want to know, right? So most of them don't, just to be
Okay.
completely frank, right? Just to be completely frank, right? They're not dosed at levels high enough that make any sort of difference. Um, oh gosh, this is a big corner. I could do a full hour just on dietary supplement.
Okay.
Um, but
We can revisit this because
yeah, we can
I
do it.
would yeah, because here's why. I would love to talk about that, and I know that we're at the hour, but I also want to dive into BMI. So
Yeah,
if you're
okay,
open to recording again,
we can do it.
like I
If you'll
know
have
you're in prep week. Oh, 1000%. Are you kidding me? Like, this is so interesting, and I think my listeners, like, I've had people asking me so many questions that I've gotten to the one, but I have so many other questions
oh well, we can do it
from
again.
people because yes, but I know that we're at the hour. I know I want to be cognizant of your time. It's in the afternoon there. So I would love to have you back if you are open. We can obviously connect offline, but it's so interesting. So interesting. So if you will come back, I will have you as many times as
Oh,
you
I'll
want.
absolutely
So
come back. I can see you're excited. Let's do it again. So, listeners, send your questions in, and I'm happy to
yeah,
for the
yeah,
next time.
especially on supplements. But Dr. Andrew Chappell, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me. It was incredible. I have learned so much today. And this episode will be out next week. And gosh, thank you so much, truly.
No problem at all. Well, it's been my pleasure being on here, and it's not often you get to go on and chat to someone about your passions and your topics. So it's yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad we got to connect. The universe just works in the best ways, you know? So, but thank you for joining me from across the pond. And until next time, we will connect after this. But
Oh,
I hope
can
you
I
have a great weekend.
thank you very much.
Oh,
Can I have a little shout out before I go, guys? And Kennels
1000%.
mainly. If you want to find out more about what I do and so on, then please do go visit my website. It's www.naturalbodybuildingcoach.com, or find me on Instagram. That's where I do a lot of posts and things like that. So you'll find me on there. I am Dr. Andrew.Chappell. So you'll find me on there.
Yes.
Um, the
And
Scotsman. I've
I'm
got
gonna,
a kilt on there.
yes, and I'm gonna post the clips from here and tag you. So,
Ah,
and then you'll
no
be in
problem.
the show notes. So, yes. We will be making sure that your socials, because I've dove on your socials obviously, and you have really great stuff, especially as it relates to like diets and whatnot. So everybody needs to follow Dr. Andrew Chappell. And for those that don't know, I called him Chappell So, and you were like,
That's the
it's
reason it's
Chappelle.
It's Chappell. It's
You
my
ding dong
right.
American. But thank you again. Thank you for being here. And as soon as we'll connect next week to get another time on the calendar.
Cool. Excellent. Thanks for your time.
All right. Bye. Thank you.